The council chamber was very quiet. 50 officers sat in tall chairs arranged in a half circle. Their uniforms were perfect. Their faces showed nothing. In the center of the room, a young man stood alone. His name was Park Do-hyun. He was 19 years old. He wore the gray uniform of a military cadet, but the badge on his chest had been removed. His hands were behind his back. His eyes looked straight ahead. Admiral Yuna stood up from her chair. She was an old woman with silver hair and cold eyes. She held a tablet in her hands and read from it in a flat voice. Cadet Park Do-hyun, you have been found guilty of refusing a direct order during Training Exercise 7. You refused to fire on the target vessels. Because of your actions, the exercise failed. 20 points were lost for your squad. Do-hyun did not move. He did not speak. Do you have anything to say? Admiral Yuna asked. The target vessels had families on them, Do-hyun said. His voice was calm. They were refugees. They were not armed. The exercise rules said nothing about killing children. A murmur went through the council. Admiral Yuna's eyes became harder. The exercise was a test of obedience. You failed. I passed a different test, Do-hyun said quietly. A test of being human. The murmur grew louder. Admiral Yuna raised her hand for silence. The council has decided your punishment. She looked down at her tablet. You will be assigned to Observation Post 7 on planet Keth-4. Solo deployment. Your mission duration is indefinite. Now the chamber was completely silent. Someone in the back made a small sound of shock. Do-hyun knew about Keth-4. Everyone knew about Keth-4. It was a jungle planet on the edge of known space. The trees grew taller than buildings. The animals were the size of ships. The air had pockets of poison gas that could kill in seconds. Electromagnetic storms hit the surface every few days, destroying all electronics. 47 soldiers had been sent to Keth-4 over the years. None of them had lived longer than 6 months. Most died in the first week. It was not a posting. It was an execution. In the gallery above the council chamber, a woman in a commander's uniform gripped the railing until her knuckles turned white. Her name was Park Yoon-ji. She was Do-hyun's mother. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run down there and take her son away. But she could not. The council had spoken. Even she, a decorated commander with 20 years of service, could not change their decision. All she could do was watch. Do-hyun turned his head slightly. He found his mother's face in the crowd. For a moment, their eyes met. He gave her a small nod, as if to say, "It will be okay." But they both knew it would not be okay. Guards came and took Do-hyun by the arms. As they led him toward the door, he passed by the cadet section. His squad mates sat there in their gray uniforms. Most of them looked away. They were afraid to be connected to him. But one cadet did not look away. Her name was Nari. She had short black hair and fierce eyes. She had trained beside Do-hyun for 2 years. She had seen him give his food to hungry cadets. She had seen him carry injured teammates on his back. She had seen him stand up for people who could not stand up for themselves. As Do-hyun passed her, Nari mouthed 2 words, "Come back." Do-hyun nodded once. Then the guards pushed him through the door, and he was gone. 3 days later, Do-hyun sat inside a small drop pod. The pod was built for 1 person. It had enough food for 30 days, basic survival equipment, and a communication array. That was all. Through the small window, he watched the stars blur as the pod fell toward Keth-4. The planet grew larger and larger. It was green and purple and brown, covered in thick clouds. Lightning flashed inside those clouds every few seconds. The pod shook as it hit the atmosphere. Warning lights flashed. Alarms screamed. Do-hyun held onto his seat and closed his eyes. He thought about his mother. He thought about Nari. He thought about Earth, a planet he had only seen in pictures. His grandfather used to tell him stories about the Korean coast, about the sea and the fishing boats and the smell of salt in the air. You come from a long line of survivors, his grandfather had said. Our family survived wars. We survived famines. We survived things that should have killed us. That strength is in your blood. The pod broke through the clouds. Below, Do-hyun saw endless jungle. Trees with purple leaves. Rivers that glowed faintly in the dim light. Mountains in the distance, covered in mist. Beautiful, he thought, and deadly. The pod crashed through the tree canopy. Branches broke. Alarms screamed louder. Then, with a final bone-shaking impact, the pod hit the ground. Silence. Do-hyun opened his eyes. He was alive. The pod was damaged but intact. Through the cracked window, he could see thick vegetation pressing against the glass. He took a deep breath. Then he activated the communication array and sent a single message. Landing confirmed. Cadet Park Do-hyun, reporting from Keth 4, beginning observation duties. He waited for a response. None came. The electromagnetic interference was too strong. Do-hyun looked at the jungle outside his window. Something moved in the shadows. Something big. He checked his equipment. A small sidearm with 50 shots. A knife. Water purification tablets. A first aid kit. 30 days of food packets. It was not much, but it was something. Okay, he said to himself. Day 1. He opened the pod door and stepped out into the alien jungle. The air was thick and warm and smelled like rotting flowers. Sounds filled his ears, strange calls, distant roars, the rustle of things moving through the undergrowth. Back at the academy, in the communication center, a technician noted that Cadet Park's landing confirmation had been received. She marked his file as active Keth 4 and moved on to other work. No one expected to hear from him again. Admiral Yuna heard about the successful landing while eating dinner. She nodded once and continued eating. The problem had been solved. The disobedient cadet would be forgotten soon. But Commander Park Yoonji did not eat dinner that night. She sat in her quarters, holding an old photograph of her son as a child. In the picture, he was smiling and holding a small fish he had caught at a lake on Earth. Come back, she whispered to the photograph. Please come back. 7 months of silence followed. On Keth 4, Do-hyun was learning how to survive, and he was about to meet someone who would change everything. Do-hyun ran through the jungle. His lungs burned. His legs screamed with pain. Behind him, something massive crashed through the trees. He had been on Keth 4 for 3 months now. 3 months of hiding. 3 months of eating strange plants and drinking filtered water. 3 months of sleeping in trees and waking up to the sounds of predators below. His uniform was torn and dirty. His boots had holes in them. His sidearm had run out of power 2 weeks ago. Now he had only his knife and his wits. And right now, his wits were telling him to run. The creature behind him was called a Keth Stalker. He had learned this from the old files in his pod's damaged computer. Stalkers were the top predators on this planet. They had 6 legs, armored skin, and jaws that could bite through metal. They were fast. They were smart. They never stopped hunting once they found prey. Do-hyun had made a mistake. He had been collecting water from a stream when the stalker found his scent. Now it was chasing him through the purple undergrowth, getting closer with every second. He could hear its breathing, deep and rough like a machine. He could feel the ground shake with each of its steps. Think, he told himself. Think. Ahead, he saw a ravine. It was deep and dark, cutting through the jungle floor like a wound. He could not see the bottom, Do-hyun made a choice. He jumped. The fall was long. Wind rushed past his face. He saw rock walls blurring beside him. He thought about his mother. He thought about Nari. He thought, this is how I die. Then he hit something soft. He crashed through a layer of glowing vines and landed in a pile of leaves and moss. The impact knocked the air from his lungs. For a moment, he just lay there, gasping, unable to move. When his vision cleared, he realized he was in a nest. It was a large hollow space in the ravine wall, hidden behind the vines. The floor was covered with soft materials, leaves, moss, shed fur. And around him, 3 creatures were staring at him with wide eyes. They were about the size of large dogs. Their bodies were covered in scales that shimmered between silver and blue. They had 4 legs, long tails, and faces that looked almost like wolves, but with something more intelligent in their eyes. They looked young babies, maybe. Do-hyun held very still. The creatures did not attack. They just watched him with curiosity. Then he smelled it. Death. Old death. He turned his head and saw, in the corner of the nest, a much larger creature. It had the same scales, the same shape, but it was not moving. It had been dead for days. The mother, Do-hyun realized. These are orphans. Above the ravine, the stalker roared. Its shadow fell across the entrance to the nest. It was trying to find a way down. One of the baby creatures made a frightened sound. It pressed itself against Do-hyun's leg, shaking. Something changed in Do-hyun's heart at that moment. These creatures were alone and scared, just like him. They had lost their mother, just like he had lost his whole world. They were survivors. Like him. The stalker's claws scraped against rock above. It was coming. Do-hyun grabbed the largest of the 3 babies and tucked it under his arm. Come on, he whispered to the others. Follow me. He ran deeper into the ravine. Behind the nest, he found a narrow crack in the rock wall. He squeezed through it, holding the baby tight against his chest. The other 2 followed, their small claws clicking on the stone. The passage was dark and tight. Do-hyun could barely fit. But the stalker definitely could not fit. He heard it roar behind him, heard it trying to force its massive body into the crack. Rock crumbled. The creature screamed in frustration. Then, slowly, its sounds faded. It was leaving. Do-hyun kept walking. The passage opened into a larger cave. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. The air was cool and fresh. He set down the baby creature. It looked up at him and made a soft chirping sound. I know, Do-hyun said. I'm scared too. The other 2 babies caught up. They gathered around Do-hyun, pressing close to him for warmth. He could feel their hearts beating fast. He sat down on the cave floor. His whole body hurt. His hands were shaking. But he was alive. He was alive, and he was not alone anymore. Okay, he said to the 3 creatures. I guess we are family now. Over the next few weeks, Do-hyun and the creatures learned to trust each other. He discovered that they were very smart. They understood his words, or at least his tone. They learned to come when he called. They learned to stay quiet when danger was near. He gave them names. The largest one, the one he had carried through the passage, he named Bada. It meant sea in Korean. His grandfather had always said that the sea was strong and wild and free. This creature had the same energy, always moving, always curious, always brave. The second one he named Hanuel, which meant sky. This one liked to climb to high places and watch the world below. The third one he named Bile, which meant star. This one had tiny spots on its scales that glowed in the dark. Like stars in the night sky, Bada grew the fastest. Within 2 months, the creature was as tall as Do-hyun's waist. Its scales turned from silver to deep blue. And something strange began to happen. Do-hyun started to feel what Bada was feeling. When Bada was hungry, Do-hyun felt a pull in his stomach. When Bada sensed danger, Do-hyun felt fear before he saw anything. It was like they were connected in some invisible way. One day, a young stalker wandered into their territory. It was smaller than the one that had chased Do-hyun before, but still dangerous. Bada stepped forward. The scales on its back rose up. A deep growl came from its throat, but the young stalker hesitated. It looked at Bada, then at Do-hyun. Then it turned and ran away. Do-hyun stared at his companion. "You protected me." Bada walked back to him and pressed its head against his hand. The message was clear. We protect each other. Haniel and Bile stayed with them for another month. But they were wilder than Bada. They wanted to explore. They wanted to find their own territory. One morning, Do-hyun woke up and they were gone. He felt sad, but he understood. They had to find their own way. But Bada stayed. Bada always stayed as the months passed. Do-hyun stopped thinking about rescue. He stopped thinking about the academy, about Admiral Yuna, about his old life. He focused on the present, on surviving, on building something new. He and Bada found more caves. They found underground rivers full of strange fish-like creatures. They found safe places to sleep and dangerous places to avoid. Do-hyun was not just surviving anymore. He was living, and deep in his mind, an idea was forming. A crazy, impossible idea. What if he could contact the outside world? What if he could tell them he was still alive? What if he could show them what he had found? 6 months had passed since Do-hyun landed on Keth 4. He no longer looked like a cadet. His hair was long and tied back. His face was thin but strong. His hands had new scars from building, hunting, and fighting. The cave system had become his home. He had explored more than 15 kilometers of tunnels. He had found 3 underground springs with clean water. He had discovered which mushrooms were safe to eat and which ones would make him very sick. He had built a small shelter inside the largest cave, using materials from his crashed pod and things he found in the jungle. Bada had grown huge. The creature now stood as tall as Do-hyun's shoulder. Its scales had turned a deep ocean blue, and they would change color slightly depending on Bada's mood, lighter when happy, darker when angry or scared. Bada could sense predators from very far away. Bada could see in complete darkness. Bada had become Do-hyun's eyes, ears, and guardian. They were a team. One evening, Do-hyun sat beside an underground river. The water was cold and clear. Strange creatures swam in it, not really fish, more like long eels with glowing fins. Bada loved to catch them and eat them. Do-hyun had learned to cook them over a small fire. They tasted strange, but not bad. He watched Bada splash into the water and catch an eel with one quick bite. The creature looked back at him proudly. Do-hyun laughed. It felt strange to laugh. He had not laughed much in the first few months. "Good catch," he said. Bada made a happy rumbling sound and brought the eel to him. Do-hyun scratched behind Bada's ears, the one spot that always made the creature close its eyes in pleasure. As he sat there, Do-hyun thought about his pod. It was still sitting where it had crashed, half buried in vegetation. Most of its systems were broken. The engine was dead. The life support was dead. But the communication array still had some power. The problem was the electromagnetic storms. Cat 4 had storms every few days that sent massive waves of energy across the planet. These waves destroyed normal signals. Every time Do-hyun tried to send a message using standard methods, the storms would break it apart. But Do-hyun had been thinking. He'd been watching the storms for months. He had noticed something interesting. The storms were not random. They followed patterns. They moved across the planet in waves, like ocean tides. And between the waves, there were small windows of calm moments when the interference was weaker. What if he could use those windows? No, That still would not work. The windows were too short, and standard communication signals were too weak. But what if he did not use standard signals? Do-hyun stood up suddenly. Bada looked at him with curiosity. I have an idea, Do-hyun said. He spent the next week studying his pod's communication array. He took it apart piece by piece, learning how each part worked. He had not been a great student in technical classes at the academy, but survival had made him smart in new ways. He learned by trying things. He learned by failing and trying again. The key was frequency. Standard military signals used high frequencies that got destroyed by the storms. But what if he used low frequencies instead? Low frequency signals were slower. They carried less information. But they were also stronger. They could travel farther. And most importantly, they could ride on top of electromagnetic waves instead of being destroyed by them. Do-hyun could use the storms themselves to carry his signal. It took him 2 more months to build the new transmitter. He used parts from the pod, parts from the crashed equipment of previous observation posts he had found, and some materials he had made himself. The device was ugly, a mess of wires and metal boxes, but when he turned it on, it hummed with power. There was one big problem. The transmitter could only send signals. It could not receive them. The bandwidth was so narrow that it could only carry data in one direction. Do-hyun could talk to the universe, but the universe could not talk back. He thought about this for a long time. Then he shrugged. One way is better than nothing, he said to Bada. He set up a small camera. He pointed it at himself and the river behind him. He took a deep breath. Hello, he said to the camera. My name is Park Do-hyun. I am a cadet, former cadet of the Galactic Military Academy. I was sent to planet Keth 7 months ago. I am supposed to be dead. He paused and looked at Bada, who was watching him with tilted head. I am not dead, obviously, and I want to show you something. He reached over and scratched Bada's ears. The creature made its happy rumbling sound. This is Bada. We found each other a few months ago. He's my best friend. Also, he's very good at catching fish. Watch this. Do-hyun threw a piece of dried meat toward the river. Bada launched after it, splashing into the water and catching it in midair. Do-hyun laughed. See? Told you. He talked for almost an hour. He showed the camera his cave home. He showed his water filtration system. He showed his mushroom garden. He explained how he had survived, what he had learned, what mistakes he had made. Then, at the end, he looked directly into the camera. I do not know if anyone will see this. I do not know if this signal will reach anyone. But if it does, I want you to know something. They sent me here to die. They sent me here to disappear. But I am still here. And I am going to keep being here. He smiled. If my mother is watching, hi, Mom, I'm okay. I miss you. And I'm sorry I cannot come home yet. But do not worry about me. I am not alone anymore. Bada walked over and sat beside him. Do-hyun put his arm around the creature. Same time tomorrow, he said. If anyone is listening. He turned off the camera. For a long moment, he sat in silence. The underground river flowed past. Bada pressed against his side. Do you think anyone will see it? Do-hyun asked. Bada made a soft sound that might have meant anything. Yeah, Do-hyun said. Me neither. But he was wrong. Across the galaxy, in the communications center of the Galactic Military Academy, a technician named Kim Tae-woo was working the night shift. He was bored. Nothing ever happened on the night shift. Then his computer made a strange beeping sound. He looked at the screen. An unknown signal had been detected. Very low frequency. Very unusual pattern. He almost ignored it. It was probably just random noise from some distant star. But something made him click on it. The signal resolved into a video. Low quality, glitchy, but clear enough to see. A young man with long hair sat beside an underground river. Beside him was a creature unlike anything Taiwu had ever seen. "Hello," the young man said. "My name is Park Do-yun." Taiwu dropped his coffee cup. It shattered on the floor. He did not notice. Commander Park Yoonji was sitting in her office when the door burst open. Young Ensign Kim Taiwu stood there, breathing hard, his uniform stained with coffee. "Commander," he gasped, "you need to come, now." She had not slept well in 7 months. Every night, she dreamed of her son. Every morning, she woke up remembering that he was gone. The council had refused all her requests for a rescue mission. Cat 4 was too far, they said. Too dangerous. No one could survive there anyway. But something in the young ensign's eyes made her stand up. "What is it?" she asked. "It is easier to show you." The communication center was chaos. Technicians were running between screens. Officers were shouting into communicators. And on the main display, the biggest screen in the room, a video was playing. Yoonji stopped walking. Her heart stopped beating. On the screen, her son was smiling. He looked different, older, thinner. His hair was long and messy. His clothes were torn. But he was alive. He was alive, and he was smiling. "Anyway, the fish here are not really fish," Do-hyun was saying. "More like eels, I think. Bada loves them. Watch this." He threw something toward the river. A massive creature, beautiful, scaled in deep blue, launched through the air and caught it in its jaws. The creature turned and walked back to Do-hyun, pressing its head against his shoulder. "Good boy," Do-hyun said, scratching behind its ears. "Oh girl, I still do not know." Yoonji felt tears running down her face. She did not wipe them away. The video continued. Do-hyun showed his cave. He showed his garden. He told terrible jokes. He talked about the storms and the predators and the strange plants that glowed in the dark dot. And at the end, he looked directly at the camera. "If my mother is watching, hi mom, I'm okay. I miss you." And Yuji made a sound that was half laugh, half sob dot around her. Everyone in the communication center had stopped working. They were all watching the screen. Some of them were crying too. "How long has this been coming through?" someone asked. "The signal started about an hour ago," Taiwu said. "It is very low frequency. It rides on the electromagnetic storms instead of being destroyed by them. He built a new kind of transmitter." "That is impossible," another technician said. "No one could do that with broken pod equipment." He did it. The video ended. The screen went dark. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Admiral Yuna's voice cut through the silence. "What is the meaning of this commotion?" Everyone turned. The Admiral stood in the doorway, her face cold and hard. Behind her, several council members had gathered, drawn by the noise. "Admiral," Commander Yoonji said. Her voice was steady now, strong. "My son is alive." "That is not possible. We just received his transmission. He's been surviving on Keth 4 for 7 months. He's built a shelter, found food and water, and even formed a bond with a native creature." Admiral Yuna walked closer to the main screen. "Play it again." They played it again. The Admiral watched without expression. When it finished, she turned to face the room. "This changes nothing," she said. "Cadet Park was assigned to Keth 4 as punishment. His survival is unexpected but does not change his sentence." "His sentence was death," Yoonji said quietly. "You sent him there to die. I sent him there to serve. Then bring him back. He has served enough. The council has not authorized a rescue mission. Then authorize one now." The room was very quiet. Everyone was watching the two women face each other. Admiral Yuna smiled coldly. "Commander Park, you seem to forget your place." Before Yoonji could respond, another voice spoke. It belonged to one of the younger council members, a man named Captain Junho. "Admiral," he said carefully, "I think you should know that this transmission has already spread beyond this room." "What do you mean?" "The signal was not encrypted. It was broadcast on an open frequency. Any ship or station within range could have picked it up." Junho looked at his tablet. "According to early reports, it has already been seen by at least 3 allied species and is spreading across the network." Admiral Yuna's face went pale. She understood what this meant. The whole galaxy was watching. Over the next few weeks, the Yun stream became the most popular broadcast in known space. Every day, at the same time, his signal would punch through Keth4's storms and reach millions of viewers. He did not know this, of course. He could not receive any signals back. He just kept broadcasting, talking to a camera, hoping someone might be listening. But everyone was listening. People loved his streams. They loved watching him fish in the underground rivers. They loved watching Bada hunt and play. They loved his stories about survival, his bad jokes, his quiet moments of reflection. More than that, they loved what he represented. Here was a human alone on a death planet, not just surviving but thriving. Not giving up, not breaking down. Just adapting, building, living. Alien species who had never thought much about humans before started paying attention. The Velith ambassador reportedly watched every stream twice. The Kree Trading Union began placing bets on what Do-hyun would do next and at the academy. The cadets watched their former classmate with new eyes. Nari watched every stream. She had known Do-hyun was special. She had known he would not give up. But seeing him there, so far away, so alone, made her heart hurt in ways she could not explain. "You idiot," she whispered at the screen. "You absolute idiot. You were supposed to come back." On the screen, Do-hyun was trying to teach Bada to fetch a stick. The creature grabbed the stick, looked at him, and then ate it. "That is not how fetch works," Do-hyun said with a sigh. Nari laughed through her tears. Commander Yoonji watched every stream too. But she also did something else. She started collecting signatures. She went to every officer who had served with her. She went to every allied diplomat she knew. She went to every politician who owed her a favor. "Sign this petition," she said. "We need to bring him home." They signed. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. The pressure on the council grew. News outlets were covering the story. Protesters gathered outside the academy gates. The phrase "Bring Do-hyun home" appeared everywhere in signs, on screens, on the hulls of ships. 3 months after the first stream, Admiral Yuna called an emergency council meeting. She looked tired. For the first time, she looked old. "Public pressure has become significant," she admitted. "Several allied species have offered to fund a rescue expedition, so we rescue him," Captain Junho said. "The risks are worth taking. He has survived 7 months alone. We owe him a chance to come home." Admiral Yuna looked around the room. She saw no support. She saw only determined faces. "Very well," she said finally. Extraction approved. Commander Yoonji closed her eyes. For the first time in 7 months, she let herself hope. On Keth4, Do-hyun sat beside his river, talking to his camera. "Today I tried to teach Bada a new trick," he said. "It did not go well. He ate the training treats and then looked at me like I was the stupid one." Bada rumbled beside him. I know. You are very smart. I am the dumb human." He looked at the camera and smiled. "Same time tomorrow. If anyone is listening." He did not know that a rescue ship had just launched toward Keth4. He did not know that millions of beings across the galaxy were cheering. He only knew that tomorrow he would wake up, survive another day, and talk to the universe again. That was enough. The rescue ship cut through the darkness of space like a silver arrow. It was a fast ship, built for emergency missions, and Commander Yoonji had made sure it had the best crew and the best equipment. She stood on the bridge, watching the stars blur past. HFY was still 2 weeks away. 2 weeks. After 7 months of waiting, 2 more weeks felt like forever. Beside her, Nari stood at attention. She had asked no, demanded to join the mission. Yoonji had agreed. Nari had trained with Do-hyun. She knew him better than almost anyone. "Do you think he knows we are coming?" Nari asked. "No, his transmitter only sends. He cannot receive." "Then, he is still there, talking to his camera every day, not knowing anyone is listening." "Yes." Nari smiled sadly. "That sounds like him. Talking even when no one answers. Hoping even when there is no reason to hope." Yoonji nodded. That was exactly like her son. On HFY, Do-hyun woke up to Bada's nose pressing against his face. He said. 5 more minutes. Bada made an insistent sound. Something was different about his body language. His scales were lighter than usual, the color of excitement or curiosity. Do-hyun sat up. "What is it?" Bada walked to the cave entrance and looked up at the sky. His ears were pointed forward. His whole body was tense. Do-hyun followed. He stood at the entrance and looked up too. The sky was cloudy, as always. Electromagnetic storms flickered in the distance. Nothing seemed different. "I do not see anything," he said. Bada made a rumbling sound. "Trust me." Do-hyun had learned to trust Bada's senses. The creature could feel things that humans could not. Maybe there was something up there, something moving through the clouds, something coming closer. But he did not let himself hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope could break you. "Come on," he said. "Time for breakfast?" He did not know that, high above the clouds, a rescue ship was beginning its descent. The landing was rough. HFY's atmosphere fought against the ship, throwing it around like a toy. Lightning struck the hull twice. Warning alarms screamed. But the pilot was good. Very good. She brought the ship down through the storm and into the jungle below. Commander Yoonji was the first one off the ship. She wore a light combat armor and carried a tracker that was locked onto the location of Do-hyun's transmissions. "This way," she said. The rescue team followed. 12 soldiers, all heavily armed. They had read the reports about HFY. They knew what lived in this jungle. They moved quickly, but carefully. The purple vegetation was thick. Strange sounds echoed from the darkness. Once they saw a massive shape moving in the distance. A HFY stalker, hunting something they could not see. They did not stop. They kept moving toward the signal. After 2 hours, they found the cave entrance. It was well hidden. If they had not had the tracker, they would have walked right past it. But the signal was strong here. They were close. Yoonji raised her hand. The team stopped. She walked forward alone. The cave was dark, but she had a light. She shined it into the entrance and saw signs of habitation, a fire pit, tools made from metal and wood, containers filled with water and food. And standing at the back of the cave, staring at her with wide eyes, was her son. He looked like a wild man. His hair was long and tangled. His beard covered half his face. His clothes were more patches than fabric. But his eyes were the same. Her son's eyes. "Mom?" His voice cracked. She could not speak. She just opened her arms. He ran to her. She caught him and held him tight, and for a long moment neither of them said anything. They just held each other and cried. Behind them, something moved in the shadows. The rescue team raised their weapons. "No!" Do-hyun pulled away from his mother. "Do not shoot. He is with me." Bada stepped into the light. He was massive, bigger than any of them had expected from the videos. His scales gleamed blue and silver. His eyes were intelligent, watchful. Several soldiers took steps backward. "This is Bada," Do-hyun said. "He is my friend, my family. He comes with me, or I do not go." Commander Yoonji looked at the creature. The creature looked back at her. Slowly, Bada walked forward. He stopped in front of Yoonji and lowered his head, almost like a bow. She understood. He was thanking her for coming. Or maybe he was asking her permission. She reached out and touched his head. His scales were warm and smooth. "Thank you," she said softly. "Thank you for keeping him safe." Bada made a low rumbling sound. "You are welcome." The journey home took 2 weeks. Do-hyun spent most of that time in the cargo bay with Bada. The creature did not like the ship. The artificial gravity confused him. The walls were too close. The sounds were wrong. But when Do-hyun was with him, Bada was calm. They sat together for hours, Do-hyun talking about his adventures on HFY, while Bada listened with patient eyes. He continued his streams. Now they were clearer, better quality. And now he could read the comments. Millions of them. People from across the galaxy had been watching. They had been cheering for him. They had been hoping for him. Do-hyun did not know what to say, so he just said thank you. His final stream before reaching the Academy was watched by more beings than any broadcast in galactic history. He sat in the cargo bay, Bada beside him. Behind them, through the window, stars streaked past. "I have been thinking," he said, "about what they meant to do when they sent me to HFY. They wanted me to disappear. They wanted me to be forgotten. They wanted me to be a lesson, a warning to anyone who questioned orders." He paused and scratched Bada's ears. "But here is the thing about humans. We do not give up. It is not in our nature. You put us somewhere impossible, and we start building. You take everything from us, and we make new things to care about. You try to break us, and we just adapt." He looked directly into the camera. "I am coming home, and I am bringing my best friend." Bada rumbled in agreement. The rescue ship landed at the Academy 3 days later. The landing pad was crowded with people. Cadets, officers, reporters, diplomats from a dozen species. They all wanted to see the human who had survived HFY. The ship's door opened. Do-hyun stepped out first. He had cut his hair and shaved his beard. He wore a clean uniform, though it did not fit quite right anymore. For a moment, he just stood there, looking at the crowd. Then Nari pushed through everyone and threw her arms around him. "You idiot," she said. "You absolute idiot." "Hi, Nari," he said. "I missed you too." Bada stepped out behind him. The crowd gasped. Some people stepped back in fear. But Bada just sat down beside Do-hyun, calm and patient. He looked around at all these strange beings with curiosity but no fear. A reporter shouted a question. "Cadet Park, what are you going to do now?" Do-hyun thought about it. "Finish my training," he said. "Graduate. Maybe teach other cadets how to survive on impossible planets." He looked at Bada. "And take care of my family." Admiral Yuno was not at the landing. She had retired a week earlier, citing health reasons. Nobody believed that, of course. Everyone knew she had been forced out. The council had decided that sending a cadet to a death planet was not a good look for the Academy. Do-hyun did not care about Admiral Yuna. He did not care about revenge or justice or making anyone pay for what they had done. He was home. That was enough. His court-martial was quietly erased from his record. He returned to training and graduated 2 years later at the top of his class. Bada was given the official title of Support Companion, a new designation created specifically for him. Do-hyun's survival techniques became required study material. His streams were archived in the Galactic Cultural Database. Students across the galaxy studied how a single human had turned a death sentence into a legendary story. And sometimes, late at night, Da-Hyun would sit in his quarters with Bada beside him. He would look out the window at the stars and remember his time on HFY. He remembered the fear, the loneliness, the moments when he wanted to give up. But mostly, he remembered the day he fell into a ravine and found 3 scared orphans looking up at him. He remembered the moment he decided that they were family. Bada pressed his head against Do-Hyun's hand. The creature was older now, bigger, but still the same friend who had saved his life 100 times. "Good boy," Do-Hyun said softly. Bada rumbled happily. Outside, the stars kept turning. The universe kept spinning. And somewhere far away, on a jungle planet called HFY, 3 bowl-shaped depressions remained in the rock of an old cave marks left by a human and his beast who had once slept there together, waiting for the dawn. They had sent him to die alone. He had come back a legend, and he had brought his best friend with him.